What's up, Dave? Running crazy late today. Jeez. It's only 6:30. What's going on, James? How's everybody doing today? How are you guys doing, man? Guys ready for week 3 NFL? I'm ready. Like I said, I don't know if you guys checked out my videos for the week, but I am, one of those which I mentioned before here. And on my videos, I kind of give you guys a heads up, like when I actually do the video. And this week, I definitely felt like quarterbacks and receivers are a good pay-up position this week. And there is definitely some value at running back. And obviously with some injuries in the last day or so, obviously has opened up even more value at running back. But earlier in the week, I did tell everybody in my videos that I was willing to pay up at quarterback this week because I felt the matchups between the quarterbacks with their respective receivers in their matchups against their opponents were in a good position. So that's one of the reasons why I felt that at running back this week I was willing to pay down. So I kind of gave you guys the heads up earlier in the week. And I don't feel no different now. And then obviously with the news as of the last day or so, obviously there is more value in the running back position, even more so now, with Latavius Murray after Dalvin Cook has been out. Then you still got Corey Clement. You still have Giovanni Bernard. You still have Mr. Wilkins, Mr. Hines. So there's a lot of possibilities. Sir Dave, yes, you guys at Cleveland have a quarterback. It's the quarterback I wanted the Jets to have, and I think the Jets were high on Baker Mayfield. I loved him in college, man. He's just a great player, and he's just so relaxed out there and so poised. I think he's just going to be excellent in Cleveland. So, good job by Cleveland and really doing their scouting and making their decision to go with Baker Mayfield as number 1. It was a shock to me when they took him because I really thought the Jets were going to lock him up at number 3, which they would have. That's for sure. But we settled for, obviously, Donald, who was the next best quarterback on the board. So hopefully Mr. Donald will have a better game the next game. But Cleveland definitely is looking on the up and up with Baker Mayfield. So, good luck to you and your Cleveland Browns, Mr. Dave. What's up, BG for real? Marky Mark, what's going on, buddy? So like I was basically saying for the ones who were here at the very beginning, first let me apologize, man. I was doing some errands and I thought I was going to be home before 7 and set up and everything. I had to turn on the computer, all the 9 yards, and I actually ran a little later than I thought. So that's the reasons why I'm about 15, almost 20 minutes late to the actual show. But better late than never. So I am here. I'm going to do the best I can to help you guys out, answer your guys' questions, and we'll see what's going on from there. But like I was saying, earlier in the week, if you guys did check out the videos, I did indicate that I was in favor of paying up at quarterback this week with the receivers and paying down at a little bit at running back. And obviously over the last day or so, we have even gotten more value at running back. So there is definitely a lot of possibilities at running back, especially on DK. I know a lot of us here play on Fanduel. I play on both for the NFL, which I've stated before for those who follow me through the WNBA. I did say that I definitely do play on Draftkings football more than anything else. But I do see a lot of value, especially at Draftkings. There's definitely a lot of opportunity there with value as far as running back. But the same value does apply, a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, but not that bad at all. So you can still have the opportunities to do well here. So let me just recap a little bit. I did get to give you guys a couple quarterbacks during this week. I have no change in the quarterbacks. Obviously, I still like Mahomes. I think like among a bunch of people, he's going to be, probably pretty chalky, and that's quite all right. Again, I've said it before here, especially for you guys that are some of you that are here right now, like James Perkins and Dave, that were viewers of mine in WNBA. There's nothing wrong with being on the chalk side. We'll eat the chalk. The only thing is that with a GPP, we definitely have to be a little different in a few areas. So we definitely don't want to have 4 or 5 or 6 players chalk, because then we'll finish up and we'll be pretty much the same lineup as about 100 other people or 300 other people, and we don't want to be in that position. So we're definitely going to have to find value in some areas. But Mahomes is definitely a fine play. I'm still with Mahomes as my top quarterback this week, as among other people. My other guy that I gave you guys were Deshaun Watson and Mitchell Trubisky. I think those are fine plays for quarterback, paying down on quarterback. But I obviously, like I said before, if you could pay up at quarterback this week, it's definitely the best week to do it. So I am all over Mahomes at quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers, Cousins, and Drew Brees, all 4 of those, they're top. You got your top 4 stud quarterbacks are all in play. Let's put it that way. They're all in favorable matchups. They're all in position where they can actually do very well. Cousins is going up against Buffalo. As we know, Buffalo is horrific defensively on both sides of the ball as far as defense is concerned. They're not good at the run defense, and they're not good defending the pass as well. Aaron Rodgers is going to be in a pretty good game against Washington in Washington on a grass field. Both teams play well on grass. That's another thing to point out in that game. Even though he has a bum knee, I mean, what he did last week, he'll do no different this week. So, and he has a lot of weapons. He has those weapons in the receiver, and then he got a nice solid tight end now in Jimmy Graham, and he finally got into the game last week. He got in touch with him a little bit, got him involved, and as long as they have Mr. Graham gets a couple of touches, and then you got Cobb and Mr. Adams, you're in good shape for Mr. Aaron Rodgers. And then as well, he has the good feet. He's willing to run with the ball too. So he's pretty much a dual threat quarterback, can run and throw at the same time. Cousins, like I said, good spot against Buffalo. Definitely should consider Kirk Cousins. The only drawback there, it could be an ugly game pretty early, and you never know. They may decide not to keep him out there, or actually it becomes more of a run control game as opposed to a passing game. But if Buffalo could put up some points and make it a little interesting, then it's just going to light it up even more so for Mr. Cousins and company. Drew Brees definitely in a great matchup against Atlanta in an indoor. He plays better on turf and in domes. Him and Matt Ryan are going to have a heck of a game. 8,500, I have no problem with him there. Hey, Angel, how you doing? Angel's here. Randy Jackson, what's up? From Hood to Riches, what's going on? Nice to see some of you guys here, like always. Coming down, like I said, so those are the guys, those are the individual quarterbacks I think everybody should be definitely targeting this week is Mahomes, Rodgers, Cousins, and Drew Brees. Now, if you wanted to pay down at quarterback, I did give you 2 fine plays in Deshaun Watson. I think he's in an excellent spot against the Giants. And he's, I'm going to always be a little partial to Deshaun because I really loved him when he was in Clemson. And just another good fine kid, man, with a lot of talent. So and he's starting to pick it up. He definitely threw better last week. He hit his targets a little bit more. He has a lot of weapons as well, as far as with Fuller opening up the doors for him with Mr. Hopkins. So I really like those guys there. I think he's going to do fine tomorrow. Matt Ryan, of course, a little sneaky play tomorrow. He's really, really cheap on DK, so DK is the best spot for Matt Ryan. If you play DK, definitely consider him there in this matchup. Other than that, I am not in favor of a lot of quarterbacks are definitely a good place tomorrow. Goff is in a good position. Jimmy G is in a good position. The only thing about Jimmy G, he's a good quarterback. He just doesn't have a whole lot of weapons. For me, it's just in my opinion. He just doesn't have enough. As soon as they can get a couple of weapons for him, he's going to be definitely a lot better there in San Francisco. But San Francisco is going to play, Kansas City pretty tough due to Kansas City being a team that is just more offensive minded than defensive minded. But but Kansas City actually is fairly good defending against the run. So they're more of a poor pass defense. Their run defense is pretty good. I think they're in the top 7 in the league. So I think that opens the door. But then again, they got those 2 guys in the backfield, Breida and as well as Alfred Morris. Those guys are capable of getting out of the backfield. They are good check down running backs. And I can see that where if Kansas City's front four is really, really getting in there, Jimmy G is going to dump a lot of balls at these guys. And the same thing with Mr. Kittle, who I recommended as one of the top tight ends this week as far as for this particular slate. Andrew Luck, same thing here. Good spot against Philadelphia. I mean, he's starting to, feel himself again. His confidence is better. He's looking pretty good to me. Tough spot against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is good against the run. They definitely are pretty poor against the pass right now. But an interesting play maybe tomorrow at quarterback if you want to pay down even more is Carson Wentz. Obviously, we know how good he is, but he has so many people that are hurt right now. He only has Mr. Aguilar. And he's probably going to have to deal with, Mr. Clement right now is still, I think, at game time he's questionable. So we'll see what's the deal there. But he's a possible good play at a running back tomorrow, and one of those backs that definitely is very good at getting on the open field as well and getting receptions. I'm not on Phillip Rivers tomorrow. I don't think he's in a good spot against the Rams. The Rams are really, really tough in both sides defensively as far as pass defense and run defense. They are pretty decent. Tough spot for him. Definitely not a day to pick Rivers, but you never know. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. Alex Smith, not on Smith. Coming down a little lower, maybe the only one you may consider. Like I said, I already told you, I like Mitch Trubisky here at 6,500. I think he is definitely a nice play here against Arizona. Why not pick on Arizona? Arizona is really, really bad all around defensively. They're just as bad as Buffalo. I think at 6,500, he is someone that people should consider. I definitely have him in a few lineups, not on the actual main the Sunday million, but definitely someone I'm considering in some of the other smaller GPPs for tomorrow. So Mitch Trubisky at running back. The three or four plays I gave you, I still love Leonard Fournette if he plays. I think he's going to play. I think he's definitely in a good matchup tomorrow. So I would love to see Fournette play. If he does, he's going to definitely be a nice play. Don't want to pay up, like I said, at running back much. McCaffrey's another one that I gave you guys earlier in the week. I love him in that game as well. And then, of course, Mr. Howard. I really love Jordan Howard. Was one of my other plays for the week as far as running back. He's 6,500 on DK. Is not a bad price. 7,400 on Fanduel. I love his numbers, and I love the fact he's playing against Arizona. Arizona is pretty bad. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Obviously, I had told you this week, if you guys listen to the videos, anybody that came in now, did mention during the week that I was definitely willing to pay up at quarterback this week because I saw opportunities in the matchups with quarterback and receiver and them loading up on fantasy points. I think a lot of fantasy points can be had tomorrow between the quarterbacks and their respective receivers on their teams in those favorable matchups. And that opens the door to be a little bit, to just pay down a little bit or pay down quite a bit at running back on FanDuel and on Draftkings. And obviously some injuries came about, and now that's opened up some more doors. There's going to be some guys that are going to be pretty chalky. The biggest names going into tomorrow as far as possibly being chalk and a good value plays or where you got value out of in the running back position is obviously Mr. Murray for Minnesota with Dalvin Cook being out. And then, of course, Corey Clement for Philadelphia. He's priced at 5,800 on FanDuel here, and on DK he's 4,300. So he's definitely at a good price as well. The one thing about it is these three guys between Bernard, Clement, and of course the gentleman I just spoke about, between those three guys, including Mr. Murray, sorry. I freaking lost it there for a minute. Latavius Murray. Between those three, they're all going to be fairly chalky. I mean, you can eat the chalk. Obviously, Murray will probably be the highest chalk of the day as far as value at running back. I could see it now. I mean, he's just in a favorable position. So I am not going to be high on him simply because of that. I think you could definitely get by without having Latavius Murray, but I would say if you can squeeze him in there, definitely play him and eat the chalk. There's no problem with that. I am not too high on Giovanni Bernard. A lot of people have been talking about Bernard, but I'm not high on him. Carolina's a really tricky team, man, defensively. They're capable of shutting down the run and the pass any given Sunday, So I'm just a little bit worried about that. They definitely did, granted, Carolina is 7th right now as far as defending the run going into the season right now after 2 games. But they did have, their issues with two players, not so much so Ezekiel Elliott in game 1. But Mr. Coleman for Atlanta definitely put up 107 yards on him last week. They have given up 228 between the two teams in 2 games. It's not a whole lot, but I just don't see it. I don't, those are explosive runners, man. We're talking about Coleman is definitely a better back than Clement. And as far as Ezekiel Elliott, we know Ezekiel Elliott is one of the top studs in the league. He didn't have the best game for Dallas in game 1 against this team. But Corey Clement is a possible play, but again, back to Bernard, I just don't know. I'm not feeling him too much against Carolina. I think Clement is the better play. Definitely, Latavius Murray is definitely the best value play at running back going into tomorrow. But a guy that I definitely think is going to have a great game tomorrow and has the possibility of having a great game because he hasn't had one yet is Mr. Kareem Hunt, who I gave to you guys in game 1 and didn't have the best game ever. But he's at $6K at DK, and he's very pricey. He's pretty pricey still on Fanduel, but on DK 6,000, that's pretty darn good, man. That is pretty cheap for Mr. Hunt here. I definitely think Kareem Hunt is definitely a fine play tomorrow, man. They're going up against San Francisco. San Francisco, granted, has not given up a touchdown to running backs, but they've given up 124 yards thus far. 163 yards rushing, 122 yards on receptions on 21 receptions. And the key number that I'm looking at is they're 25th against the rush, and they also have given up 24.3 DK points and 18 Fanduel points, and those are pretty high. That's in the top 10 or 12 in the league right now. And also they have been at 50%. Opponents have been getting into the red zone about 3 times a game, and they're averaging about 50%. So, yeah, I think he definitely has a great opportunity here, man. This game here, man, as much as everybody's considering kind of close, even Vegas, I could see Kansas City really blowing the doors open on this team, San Francisco. San Francisco is subpar defense, man. I don't think they have anything really there that could shut down this offense. And I've been saying this since week 1. It's going to be tough to shut down this offense as long as these guys are all playing well. The longest Mahomes is throwing the ball well, the longest Hunt is running well, and the longest the other gentlemen are catching the ball. And they got so many weapons. You got Kelsey, you got Hill, then you still have Sammy Watkins, and you still have to deal with Chris Connolly sometimes. They're all very dangerous. They're all capable of having big games, especially like Tyreek Hill, who's capable of exploding, and he's a big game changer any given time. Mr. Hunt is the same way. It's just a matter of time, and this may be the game. There may be a Kareem Hunt type of game. For $6K, I think he's definitely a great play here. I'd rather pay $800 more. And another thing, going back to Latavius Murray, Murray is actually more expensive on DK, surprisingly. He's only $52 on Fanduel. So he's definitely better price on Fanduel somewhere. Definitely someone you should consider if you're playing Fanduel. If you're doing DK, $5,800 is still a good price for Latavius Murray. But to think I could pay $200 more and get Kareem Hunt with the upside that he has, that might be an option there. Definitely someone to consider. So when it comes to the running backs, that's where I'm at, man. I don't see anybody else. There are a couple of guys, like I mentioned, I did tweet out yesterday, with Marlon Mack being out. You could definitely consider Mr. Wilkins or Mr. Hines. They both are kind of sharing the duty a little bit for the Colts, but you could possibly go that route with either one of those guys. And then, of course, San Francisco in the same game against Kansas City. Do not sleep on Alfred Morris or Matt Breida. These gentlemen both. Breida's more expensive than Alfred Morris, but they both have been getting about similar touches. About 29 touches for Breida during the course of 2 games, and 28 for Alfred Morris. So any given day, any one of the two may have a big game, and they're both capable of receiving balls off the backfield. They're definitely decent dual back threats. Not explosive, not the big high upside like a Kareem Hunt or a Camaro or anything like that. But these guys are capable of getting it done, especially if Garoppolo's you're feeling a little bit of the pressure. I can see him dumping a lot of passes. This is why I love George Kittle in this matchup for San Francisco against Kansas City. So again, those are some of the players that I'm looking at running back. Obviously, like I said, I definitely like the ones that I gave out early in the week. I still love those guys. They are a little bit more pricier, but we did find a couple little values. Another possible sneaky player running back before I move on to the wide receivers real quick, Mr. Lewis. Dion Lewis for Tennessee going up against Jacksonville. Jacksonville did give up 107 yards, something like that, 106, 107 yards to Mr. Barkley. in week 1 against the Giants. They did a lot better in the following week, but nonetheless, Jacksonville is giving up 180 yards, 2 running backs in 2 games, 12 receptions for 111 yards. I love those numbers because that's about almost 9.5 yards per catch. I love to see numbers close to 10 or more, especially when you have those minimal amount of receptions. And they've given up 25 DK points to running backs and 20.6 Fanduel points. So those are definitely numbers that I like to see. When it comes to the fantasy points, you definitely, obviously, we all want fantasy points. So be on the lookout for Dion Lewis. Only 4,500 here on DK. I think he could be a possible sneaky play. He's one of those sneaky plays. They're going to start doing a little video of sneaky plays for you guys that tune into the channel, because there are some sneaky guys that you got to be, you got to keep on your radar. So Mr. Lewis may be a possible play there, and he's another back that's very good coming out of the backfield, can catch the ball, can be explosive, especially in the flats. So Dion Lewis, may be someone that you may want to consider at 4,500. Obviously, there are some better plays than Dion, but I would not sleep on him. Another guy that I didn't mention is also Mr. Kenyon Drake from Miami. Watch out for Mr. Drake. He is a little bit more pricier, 6,800 on FanDuel, 5,600 on DK, but another one that could be a little bit of a sneak play going up against Oakland. Oakland is not that good defending the run thus far this year. Doesn't mean that they're not going to improve. They did play better last week, Oakland did, but they're still 31st in the league defending the rush. One thing I do like is they have not given up a touchdown, just like San Francisco, so they've been pretty good there. But they have had their opponents have put up 265 yards on them, and 1 touchdown. 265 yards, and they have given up 7 receptions for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. Sorry about that. I did say 0 touchdowns, 1 touchdown. And the key number here, 29.4 DK points against running backs and 24.6 FanDuel points, which is up there in the top 8 or 9 in the league thus far. So, I mean, those are guys to consider. When we go to the wide receivers, obviously I mentioned to you guys early in the week, I gave you guys DeAndre Hopkins. I gave you Michael Thomas. Obviously, those guys are all still in play for me. And I also gave you Adam Thielen from Minnesota. Those guys are all in play. I definitely think those guys are in excellent spots. Their quarterbacks are going to have a fine day, and they're going to have a fine day as well receiving them balls. So they're going to get targeted quite a bit. Like I said, they're in a very good spot. There are some other plays here at wide receiver that I think everybody should always have on their radar. Obviously, Julio Jones going up against New Orleans is definitely still someone in play. New Orleans, granted, they gave Tampa Bay, they've given up 5 touchdowns already this year. Before them came against Tampa Bay in week 1. But 558 yards to receivers, that is a whole lot of damn receptions, a whole lot of yards and a lot of receptions. 40 targets against them, 31 receptions, 558 yards and 5 touchdowns. And get this, 61.8 Draftkings points to wide receivers New Orleans has had this year. And this all basically really came against Tampa. 51 FanDuel points. That's the most in the NFL in both platforms here as far as fantasy points given up to receivers. So definitely Julio Jones is in play. Tyreek Hill, same thing, in play. San Francisco's given up 415 yards to the opposition this year at receiver and 3 touchdowns and given up a whopping 47.6 DK points and 37.6 FanDuel points. So I think Tyreek Hill's in a good spot. Another guy that's pretty cheap and is someone to keep on your radar is Keelan Cole for Jacksonville. He's been, really tearing it up. Bortles is definitely finding him. He's 6,400 here on FanDuel, and he's 5,600 on DK. And you also got to consider Mr. Westbrook as well. He's 5,500 here and 4,600, a whole 1,000 less than Keelan Cole for Jacksonville. Those are the 2 key targets for Blake Bortles. Going up against Tennessee, was given up 469 yards thus far this year in 2 games against the opposition and 4 TDs. All right, also a large amount of fantasy points to be had here also. 59.8 fantasy points thus far this year. 59.8 and 47.1 on FanDuel. So huge numbers, Granted, doesn't mean they're going to give up 59.8 tomorrow, but Tennessee, it's not like Keelan Cole. I mean, with the fantastic grab he had last year, it was just, spectacular. But not very explosive receivers for Jacksonville with Blake Bortles, but Blake Bortles is just, he's really hitting these guys, and he has a strong connection thus far with these two players, and especially with Keelan Cole. So I would not sleep on these guys, man. Keelan Cole at that price is not a bad play after all. He's going to get targeted because he's the top dog right now. He's the top dog. Other than that, there's a couple of guys other than those guys to definitely keep an eye on. Obviously, T.Y. Hilton in a good spot against Philadelphia. Like I said, Philadelphia's front four, they're good at stopping the run. They're so far pretty poor with all the injuries. They're definitely struggling against the pass. So I could see Andrew Luck and T.Y. hooking up for a touchdown or so. 51 targets against the Philadelphia defense, 34 receptions, 463 yards, 3 touchdowns given up to wide receivers thus far this year in 2 games, and 52.2 DK points and 40.2 Fanduel points. That's still a large number, man. Large number. We want to see those Fanduel points and those DK points. So he is definitely someone to consider in the matchup. Obviously, I also gave you guys Allen Robinson to team up with Mr. Trubisky for Chicago. So Allen Robinson is definitely in my radar. He's going to be in my lineup as one of those more value type of play receivers. I think he's in a great spot. You got to pick on Arizona. They have been terrible. And so Arizona definitely shows us that they can play defense in defending the pass as well as the run. Then I will stop picking on them. But right now, we have to be smart about this, and if they're going to be up against a team that has that possibilities and has the players and the ability to maybe put up some good fantasy points, you got to give them a shot. And they're going up against Chicago, and that defense has been pretty darn good. So I've seen it all in football and in every sport over the years, tons of years of watching sports, and trust me, any given day, any given Sunday, anything can happen. So remember, that is not guaranteed, but the numbers say here that Chicago should do well against Arizona. So we'll see how that goes out, how that pans out. But Allen Robinson is definitely someone to consider. Of course, like I said, I love the Minnesota with Adam Thielen, but obviously you got to consider, Stephon Diggs as well. Going up against Buffalo. Buffalo's given up 6 TDs, the most in the NFL, to wide receivers this year, and 52.3 DK and 45.3 respectively Fanduel points. So definitely those are guys to consider. And then, of course, Hopkins and Fuller for the Texans against the Giants. Obviously, I like that. The Giants have not faced anybody thus far this year like Houston with the weapons they have at receiver. And that's what leads me to believe that's really what I believe in as far as just looking at the matchup. I just think that their matchup is better, and it's just a matter of time before that Houston Texans defense really gets going with Clowney and J.J. Watt. So it's just a matter of time. Those guys haven't manufactured a sack yet, but this may be a day they might be able to do that. So I definitely like those guys there. And, of course, you got to consider Mr. Thomas for New Orleans. And those are the guys that I'm looking at as far as receiver. At tight end, I haven't changed anything. Tight end still the same. Love Mr. Kittle in this matchup. Obviously, Kelsey, Ertz, and Graham are all in play and are all in good situations as well. But I normally don't pay up at tight end. And you know what? This week I just don't feel that we need to. So I think George Kittle for me is enough. I still like Ingram if he does play for the Giants against Houston. Houston has had their issues against tight ends, if anything, more so with tight ends than receivers. And Trey Burton is definitely in my radar as well for Chicago against Arizona. And you obviously got to consider Eric Ebron for Indianapolis against Philadelphia. And that's basically it for me as far as those guys. Defensively, man, the defense has not changed for me. I still like the ones that I mentioned. I did mention Minnesota, favorable position. They're in a good spot. I still like the Texans over the Giants, and I still like the Bears with Arizona. I think those are the 3 best defenses this week. Again, it's just my opinion. The numbers just show it, that those are the best possible plays. So, and they're pretty much all similar price. I mean, if you're gonna go all the way up, if you're willing to pay $4,900 and you're gonna pay down at tight end, you could pay up for Buffalo here. I mean, Buffalo with a little bit of pressure. Mr. Allen being a rookie, you could get a lot of turnovers here. There's the possibility of that. I mean, I really see that happening, and I see the same here with the Texans. They can really put some pressure on Eli Manning, who's been really running for his life as of late, and he's been looking pretty shaken by it. I could just see Houston putting a little pressure on Eli. Obviously, that opens the doors to Mr. Ingram, which I believe he's going to definitely target on those short pass plays. So look for that for Eli. But he's going to try to get the ball off as quickly as he can if this defense really starts cracking and really starts winning the line of scrimmage against that giant O-line that really is not that good. It really is not. All right, let's see what we got here, man. And obviously, guys, well, let me tell you before I start just looking and seeing how I can help anybody. As far as there are games that I like that are perfect games to stack. The Kansas City San Francisco game, definitely a great game to stack. If you wanted to target that game, it's the highest implied total for the slate. You could definitely target obviously 2, maybe even 3 Kansas City players, and you can definitely target 2 players for San Francisco. For example, you can go Mahomes, you can go Hunt, and you can go Hill, for instance. And you can turn around and you can take either Morris or Breida, or you could take Kittle or one of the receivers like Pettis or Garcon, one or the other. But you could take 2. I would figure Kittle's going to get a lot of targets tomorrow. I think that Kansas City's front is going to be able to get through a little bit, and there's going to be a lot of short passes for Jimmy G. Jimmy don't have explosive receivers, receivers that can really take it downfield and break one open and just be able to they don't have like Odell Beckham or Antonio Brown or something like that can really just make a big play, or Tyreek Hill or something like that. But this is where I see where Kittle is going to be in that position to do well. So I like Kittle here. You could always pair Kittle with Pettis or Garcon or one of the running backs like Breida, and you can squeeze in Mahomes, Hunt as your other back and throw in there Hill, or maybe even go cheaper if you wanted to. You can do Sammy Watkins, who's going to get some targets as well. He is capable of being very explosive. So, but that's a good game that you could possibly stack and get 4 or 5 nice plays out of it in your lineup. The next one obviously is New Orleans and Atlanta, obviously, with Atlanta 27 implied points and 26 for New Orleans. This is a pretty close game, at least the last I looked at on Fantasy Labs. You got Ryan. You could throw in there Matt Ryan, who's cheaper than Breeze, so you can open up some value. You can go Matt Ryan with Tevin Coleman and Julio Jones, and then throw in there somehow Kamara and Thomas. I think you could squeeze all 5 of them in, especially on Fanduel. You can go that route. And then the other game that I like also, there could be a nice game to probably there's actually 2 more games I like that I think you can game stack or get some good quality players from. Carolina, Cincinnati could be another game. This is going to be a close game. Not as high implied total as the others that I just spoke about, but Carolina with Newton, you could throw in there with Funchess or possibly even Jarvis Wright. Or you can throw in McCaffrey. I would say get 3 Carolina guys and get 2 Cincinnati guys. And if you don't want Cam, go with Dalton. And you can definitely go with A.J. Green and throw in there Mr. Bernard, and then grab McCaffrey and maybe Funchess. You could do something like that if you didn't want Cam. But I think Cam could be the more dangerous quarterback in that game tomorrow. Then the next game that I like also as a possible game stack is Green Bay, Washington. I think that would be a nice game to definitely target somebody. Definitely, all these games and all these teams that I mentioned here are all teams that I am targeting myself as far as finding players for my lineups. But if you wanted to target one of the games, like I mentioned, the 3 that I mentioned are good, and I also like the Green Bay Washington game. You could target Rodgers with Cobb, or Rodgers with Jimmy Graham and Cobb, or even Davante Adams with Mr. Jimmy Graham and Aaron Rodgers. Definitely their receivers, not so much so on their running backs. And then you can go with the running back of Washington. You could definitely go Chris Thompson, and then maybe throw in there either Crowder, Dotson, or Mr. Jordan Reed. Probably Jordan Reed will probably be the best bet. Green Bay definitely has trouble with tight ends, so that might be an area to target. You can go Thompson and Reed, and now you got 2 guys that are definitely going to eat up the middle, because Thompson is basically really a receiver. He does carry the ball. He gets his touches here, but he gets more target. He gets more passes. So I could see Chris Thompson. And if you didn't want to go with Rodgers, you can do Alex Smith, but I think Rodgers is the better play. Too much more upside, against as opposed to Alex Smith. So I would go that route if you wanted to game stack that game. So what's my thought on Matty? Okay. Avenging Angel, Cowboys. All right, yeah, Dallas pulled out that game against the Giants. Green Bay Packers should do okay tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting game. But I think they have more weapons than Washington, so I definitely like Green Bay. No Dak. No, I'm not on Dak Prescott, but James, but he may be a good play here. Seattle, we know, and not the same Seattle team. That's for certain. I would say, like I said last week, if you're targeting games, if me personally, you look at here on the main slate, there goes the 3, 4 o'clock games right there. You got the Chargers and the Rams, Dallas, Seattle, and Chicago, Arizona. I'll be targeting Chicago, and I will not at all be afraid to target 1 or 2 players from the Dallas game. You definitely could go with Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott and maybe even Dak Prescott there. I'm not too fond of Dallas's receivers, man. It's just I don't feel they have anybody there that fears anybody. But Seattle definitely not being the same Seattle team as they were years ago. They're not the Legion of Boom anymore. They're more the Legion of Bust. So it's definitely a tough spot for them. They are at home, so remember they're pretty tough at home. You can never really sleep on Seattle, especially when you have a Russell Wilson. So you just never know with him, man. I do like the tight end, Disley. So you definitely, I could definitely see Russell Wilson having a pretty decent game as far as delivering the ball to his tight end. The Chargers-Ram game is going to be the game of the day at 4 o'clock. I mean, that's going to be something else. But the Rams at home, basically at home, but that's the same field the Chargers play in. So it's more of the battle of who's the best team for the home crowd. Let's put it that way, I guess. But the Rams should prevail in this game. I think they just have more talent, man. Bottom line, defensively, offensively, I think they just got the best talent. So, but you could target out. If I'm going to target anybody there, I'm definitely not too high on any of the Chargers players other than maybe Melvin Gordon, simply because of that dual threat back. He's just a dual threat back that's capable of hurting you with his feet and his hands. I would probably consider that, but the Rams definitely, to me, are probably the superior team, defensively and offensively, and I would target their offensive players more so. I love Cooper Kupp in this game. I do love Mr. Gurley as well, and Mr. Goff. So, but if you're looking at that, I would say if you're targeting Dallas and Seattle game, I would say, man, play the 4 o'clock slate and grab some of the players there. And I think you may have a better chance to do well in a lineup there than on the main. There's definitely a lot more opportunities other than Dak Prescott in the main slate. But again, anything can happen. He may have a great game here. I rather fade him here. I really believe there is better quarterbacks in this slate that are going to be in much more favorable and in better opportunities to put up some big fantasy points, like Drew Brees, like Patty Mahomes, and so on. It's just quite a bit of guys. Neely, what's going on? Yeah, I mean, well, hey, that will be great, Angel, if he could put up the 16.5. Again, I don't have no problem playing Dak Prescott in the 4 o'clock slate. And I actually did put him in one of my lineups at the 4 o'clock slate because I love the small. As you guys know, I always prefer to play the smaller slates. On the main slate, I'm only going to play a couple games. That's basically it. Matt Ryan, yes, Matt Ryan is in play. Who you should pair? Who should you pair Watson with at wide receiver? I mean, either or, Fuller or Hopkins. But obviously, you got to go with Hopkins. You got to go with Hopkins, man. Granted, Hopkins is going to go up, probably one of the better defenders. But again, I'm not buying anything the Giants have defensively, man. Eli Apple is out right now. He's their best corner cover guy, and he is not, an all-star. So, I think Hopkins and Fuller are both going to play well here, man. I really like both, but I definitely, I'm going to go with whom I gave you guys early in the week. I still think Hopkins is definitely going to be the best play here, with Deshaun Watson. So I will go Hopkins. Yeah, Neely, you can do a Thomas with Julio, definitely, and then take one of the quarterbacks. Matt Ryan is cheaper, so maybe take Matt Ryan in that matchup. That's what I would recommend, so you could free up a little bit more room to get another possible good wide receiver in there, or maybe even pay up and get yourself a decent back. That's what I believe you could do there. But Michael Thomas and stacking with Julio Jones, sure. Yeah, Prescott. Yeah, Avenging Angel. Yes. Yeah, he is. Definitely for GPP he is. If you want to pay down a quarterback, that's fine. If you're paying down a quarterback, then I say you definitely got to get a stud running back, and make sure you have yourself at least two good quality receivers. The only reason I'm not on Dak Prescott on the main event is because I believe the better options for us are paying up at quarterback this week, which I said earlier in my videos this week. I really am targeting more the quarterbacks with the receivers because of what I basically said before. I gave you the Fanduel and DK points, and those are intriguing to me. Other than seeing what the matchups are and where the defenses are at the moment, I always look to see what kind of fantasy points they're giving up. And that's how I kind of get more of a gauge, other than also knowing who is playing, who's defending against someone, because if one of the better defenders is out, that obviously opens the doors even more so. But all that you got to take into consideration. Dak Prescott, yes, if you want to pay down at quarterback, which I would recommend any other week because I go week by week. But me personally, myself, I normally pay down a little bit at quarterback. I've said that in week 1. And that's pretty much the way I normally do things, especially in a big main event here in the NFL during the course of the year. That's the way I usually go. I usually pay down at quarterback, usually pay down at tight end, and maybe even on defense depending on the matchups. But if I could get a solid defense that really is in a favorable matchup that can get me some turnovers, they're very good defensively, shut down teams to a minimal amount of points, yes, you're going to gain some additional fantasy points. I would go that route. But tight end, I would pay down, and quarterback, I would on a normal basis. But running back and wide receivers, you get tons and tons of possibilities with fantasy points, especially the running back, simply because of the dual threat backs that we have now in the NFL. We have quite a bit of them. And we have a lot of teams, the offenses are now just really becoming more where the running backs are more involved in the game other than running the ball between the tackles. And that's and most teams are looking for those kind of players when they draft them out of college. And that's why we have the Hunts and we have the Gordons and we have the Camaras and now the Barkleys, is because these teams want to see that explosive dual threat back there that gives them a lot more options and opens up and it spreads the defense out more. So, yeah, I really, I have no problem with Dak Prescott being played here. If you're going to definitely do that, pay down a quarterback so you can definitely pay up a little bit at running back and a receiver. Yes, you can go that route, Avenging Angel. Keith Gordon, what's up? Yeah, Seattle is pretty weak, Avenging. Yeah, definitely. Hunt? Yeah, I love Kareem Hunt tomorrow. 6,000 on... 6,000 on DK is really a good price. He's more pricier on FanDuel. I think he's like 7,900. Yeah, 7,900. 7,900 is a little pricey for him here, but on Draftkings, I love the price at 6. Here, the only guy I like here at that 79 price would be Christian McCaffrey. I think he's just going to have a really good game here. But then again, Kareem Hunt would be someone I would consider as well at that price. Other than that, I rather, like I said, my thought process this week when I saw the matchups was that I saw opportunity to pay down at running back. And that's why I gave you guys the video earlier in the week about running backs, and I suggested that you could pay down at running back. You don't have to go with the top. Gurley at 9,300, Kamara at 8,700, pretty pricey, and Melvin Gordon. You could pay down. I don't know why David Johnson's price is still 8,200. I mean, Chicago is pretty decent right now defensively, top 10 overall. So, but they still have him there, and he's just not, that team is just really doesn't look good right now. Yeah, James Perkins. Yes, I mentioned that earlier. If you didn't hear me, there are a couple of guys that opened up value this week. Of course, Wilkins, Hines for Indianapolis with Marlon Mack out. And then, of course, you have Corey Clement, you have Giovanni Bernard, and then you have Latavius Murray after Dalvin Cook was ruled out yesterday. And I definitely reached out to you guys as best as I could on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram and let you guys know that. That is the latest news with that. And, of course, that opens up the doors. But, yeah, Latavius Murray, out of all those guys, between Corey, Clement, Giovanni Bernard, and Latavius Murray, you open up a lot of value there. I think Murray is going to be the more chalkier out of the three. And if Clement is able to go, I think Clement will be probably the second highest. I'm not too fond of Bernard, but then again, That's just my feeling on him as far as him playing up against Carolina. Because Carolina, I've seen that, this team, you watch them long enough, they have those moments where they just really just shut down running games and make receivers look pretty bad as far as coming out of the backfield as well. So, and then at home. And Cincinnati, not that great a team on grass, man. That's another thing that I always remember from Cincinnati, man. They love playing on that turf. They're not a really good grass team. But again, anything can happen. Anything can happen any given Sunday. All right, we all know that. So with that, that's one of the reasons why I'm not on Bernard. But I think Corey Clement and Latavius Murray, I'm willing to eat the chalk on those two. Murray on Fanduel. Yeah, Evangelina, and Murray is a better deal on Fanduel. Surprisingly, he is 5,200 here, and I think he's 58 or 5,900 on DK. Let's see. Murray. Yeah, Latavius Murray is 58 on DK. Obviously, he is a great price on FanDuel. So if you're playing FanDuel, Latavius Murray would be. And again, eat the chalk. So what? He's chalky, 60, 70%, 50%. You could take one chalk. It opens up value. You just got to be slightly a little different in your decision as far as where you put that value at. Is it going to be at your quarterback play? Is it going to be at your receivers, your tight end? You look for those favorable matchups. I gave you what I believe are possibly the best plays during the week, and I also touched on a few other plays here when I got started. So, boss is coming. All right. Angel, good luck tomorrow, man. Hopefully you keep that winning streak going. You're welcome. Tyler Boyd has valued. Yeah, James Perkins, yes, but I don't know. I am not feeling that Cincinnati game that much, but I think like I said before, I think it's a good game to stack. I still will favor with Cincinnati. I would still favor if you're going to take three or take one player or two from Cincinnati. I'd rather go with AJ Green and pay up for AJ Green at receiver. Okay, than taking again. This is all a matter of how you're setting up your lineup. If you're looking to pay up at quarterback a little bit, or at least get, if you're looking for a top-notch quarterback, then you should definitely find value at running back. That's fine. But at the same time, you can't try to find value also at receiver. I think that is either, for me, this week, the value is definitely at running back. So why not try to get one solid running back in that mid-tier range that could really be in a very favorable position, like a McCaffrey, if you wanted to pay up, or like a Hunt, maybe in a good spot. Hunt here, as far as the FanDuel, I will pay down and maybe take like a Tevin Coleman or something like that. Even a sneaky play, like I said, Drake is in a favorable spot against Oakland, 31st ranked defense against the rush. Really not looking good in the against running backs at all thus far. After 2 games, you still got Chris Thompson. So there's a couple of guys here, and then of course the players that opened up value, like Latavius Murray, Giovanni Bernard. You can take any 2 of those guys. You can take even a Matt Breida. Okay, here. You got a Corey Clement. I mentioned also Dion Lewis. Don't sleep on Dion Lewis. He's 4,500 on DraftKings. I think that's a great price. He could be a very sneaky play. To me, he's like a sneaky play, like I mentioned before. You got Eckler here for the Chargers against the Rams. You never know. Let's say the game gets a little out of hand. Could possibly happen where the Rams take a 10, 12, 14-point lead. It can't happen. And then he's going to get garbage time. He's getting more than enough touches just playing in a regular game, as far as time is concerned. And then you got the value plays of Wilkins and Hines. Either one of these two. These guys have pretty much split their time here, just like Alfred Morris has done with Matt Breida. So don't fall asleep on Alfred Morris at 5,500. And like I said before, at Alfred Morris, he is 40. What is he? He's even cheaper. He's definitely cheaper. I know that for sure. Alfred Morris, 3,700 on DraftKings. I'm not sleeping on him, man. He gets 28 touches. He's gotten 28 touches thus far, and 29 for Breida in 2 games. So they pretty much have split their time. Which team is the best? Okay, hold on. I skipped a few people's questions here. Sorry about that. So Boyd, Yeah, thanks, Dave, for that. Yeah, guys, appreciate it if you drop a like on the live show. It definitely shows me that you appreciate my time. Orlando Harris, how you doing? What's going on? What's my thoughts on Golden Tate? You know what? I am not high on Golden Tate, but again, listen, we're talking about Golden Tate. He's not on this actual slate. You know what I could do is, who's the one who asked that question? It's Dave. I could reach out to you later and let you know more about what I think about Mr. Tate and his matchup. He's not on this. I want to just try to cover the players and the games on this slate. You know, I don't want to sound rude, but I could definitely touch base with you later about that, you know, on Facebook. It's not a problem, and I can let you know what I think. Right now, offhand, I know he's in a good position. They're playing the Patriots, correct? Detroit? I think that's a good spot for Mr. Tate. You know, so right now, off the top of my head, I would say yes, I like him, but I'm going to look into him a little bit more for you. There's no way Prescott would fit in the main slate. That just won't work. Well, I mean, I know I haven't decided to do anything like that with Dak Prescott. Like I said, I am all in favor of paying up at quarterback and getting a stud receiver or two, and then paying down slightly at running back, or maybe even getting some really good value. You do have a couple of guys that I mentioned at running back that are possible great plays. So which team has the best stack for the Express slate? Wow, you know, what if it is those three teams here? I don't know what that slate looks like right now. The Express slate will be what? The Dallas, Seattle, Chicago, Arizona game? If you're looking at that right now, because right now I have the Sunday Million here. And looking at 425, obviously that would mean Dallas and Seattle, Chicago, Arizona. And if I'm going to go with that, I definitely love Trubisky with Mr. Howard and Mr. Robinson for Chicago. That is my best stack for that 425 time, as far as that 425 game slot, that slate. If it's, again, you let me know. If it is the Dallas, Seattle, Chicago, Arizona game, you already know. I already pointed out I love Trubisky this week in this matchup. I also mentioned that I like Howard, and I also mentioned that I love Robinson. They're all in my videos from this week. So I am in favor of Chicago, and I also like the Chicago defense. So out of those four games, the Chicago defense and the Dallas defense in that 425 game slot, those are the two best defenses to go with, obviously. And I would favor Chicago more due to the fact that they have gotten more sacks. But Dallas has had, I think, 9 sacks. I think Dallas is the second best, if I recall correctly. Dallas has just as many. Okay, Neely has. I got Kamara, Matt Ryan, Ebron, Thomas, Julio Jones, and Clement. Okay. Yeah, I can see the Kamara in the backfield with Clement. Not bad. Matt Ryan, obviously a little bit cheaper. Is this on Fanduel you're playing this, Neely, or on DK? Because on DK, Matt Ryan is even cheaper. I mean, he's probably one of the stud quarterbacks that is very cheap this week. And then Ebron is cool. I think Ebron is not bad at all, man. He should get some targets. He should, because there is no Jack Doyle. DK, yeah, that's excellent. I think that those right now that's a pretty decent core group of guys. Matt Ryan, you got his buddy Julio to team up with him. Then you got Ebron as your tight end, and you got Kamara as your top running back, and your 2 is Corey Clement with Matt Ryan, your quarterback. I think you're good. Now load up on Minnesota or one of either I would say Minnesota, probably the best defense. I think you should have enough to pay for them. Disley, yeah, Disley I am in favor of. I mentioned that this week. He was my low, kind of my low value play for tight end, Will Disley. I think he's gonna pair up fine with Russell Wilson this week. Ted Ginn, yeah, why not? Ted Ginn is fine. Ted Ginn, you know, I mean, if Thomas is not getting a whole lot of touches, he will. Let's see what's Ted Ginn's price. Well, you said DraftKings. Mr. Ginn. Am I going too far down? Where is he? I had to pass him. Ted Ginn Jr. 4,700 on DK. I'm looking to see what's around him at that price. Man, you got Funchess and you got Cooper Kupp a few $100s more. They're in more favorable position, at least in my opinion, than Ted Ginn. But I think Ted Ginn is fine. This is a good game. There's going to be a lot of points. It's going to be close. I could see him getting some targets. Definitely. But I like Cooper Kupp for $200 more. I think he's a great play, and I think Funchess for Carolina is in a good play too. Below that, I mean, you got Westbrook 4,600, and I'm not too fond of anybody else. Maybe Corey Davis. Yeah, that's it. I don't have. When it comes to the wide receivers this week, I really prefer to try to pay up. I mean, it's just there is so much opportunity, man. You know, from Devontae Adams, from all for the Minnesota receivers, the Green Bay receivers, the New Orleans receivers, the Kansas City receivers. I mean, you got a couple of guys there that you can definitely mix and match and do well with as far as at receiver this week. So I am all in favor of paying up at a quarterback and paying up at the receiver spot, paying down at tight end, and paying down just a little bit at running back. You should be able to still get some good value. Neil, yeah, that's how many lines are you planning to play? If you're planning to play one line, then I think where you're at, you're fine. But if you're going to play multiple lines, then yeah, make another line and throw in Hunt. Keep the one you have and then do another one where you get Hunt in there and then get that third receiver over there. That's what I recommend if you're playing more than one line. But if you're not, if you're playing just one line, you're doing one line for the main event, then yes. Yeah, just a couple. All right, so yeah, Neely, I would say definitely keep what you have built up to this point because the lineup looks pretty darn good. And then just add, do your secondary lineup. Definitely then you fade Kamara if you wanted to, and then throw in there Kareem Hunt. You got to take a stab at Kareem Hunt, man, because he's just too cheap. You know, he's just, he has too much upside, man. Too much upside to at least give him a shot. And this is what it's all about. The GPP is about, trying to find a couple good possible plays that have such good upside and has the potential to really give you some big numbers for that cheap price. Carolina BYT, good evening. How you doing? Is that where we at with everybody? Prescott will fit in the main slate. It just won't work. Both Hopkins and Will Fuller is definitely in play. Yes, Marky Mark. I think we covered pretty much. Anybody else with any other questions? Well, like I said, just to go over whoever's here. Obviously, I already had the quarterbacks I mentioned in my video earlier in the week. Obviously, Mahomes, Watson, and of course, Mitchell Trubisky. All right, and he's the only quarterback that I will go down that low this week if I wanted to. I did make one lineup with him in there. I think he's in a good possible matchup. You got to take advantage of the Arizona situation. How poorly they've been playing. So obviously him, Mr. Howard, and Mr. Robinson are definitely three that I'm considering. And I already have considered and put in one of my lineups, not in the Sunday Million one, but in some of the other little GPP tournaments that are out there for tomorrow for the main slate. And I also am targeting them for the 4 o'clock as well, the 4 o'clock games. At running back, and then of course at quarterback. And this is just for those who just came in now, obviously. Obviously, I had said Aaron Rodgers is in play. You can't pass up Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams, with Mr. Cobb, and, of course, Mr. Graham. And then you got Kirk Cousins in a favorable matchup at Buffalo with the weapons he's got, Thielen, Diggs. I mean, you can't go wrong. Rudolph, man. And then, of course, they got Murray, who's the value player at running back, who's going to be chalky. But, again, there's nothing wrong with eating that chalk once in a while. Just make sure you mix it up in your receiving positions, and you should be okay. Try not to go with anybody that may be too chalky over there, but it's a lot of options, and that's the beauty of it. That's why I feel that this week, like I mentioned earlier in the week with my videos, is that I believe paying up at quarterback can be had this week with a lot of points, as well as the receiver spot, and then just being a little bit more reasonable at running back. If you're going to go anybody low, obviously, like I said, the best bet is Mr. Trubisky for me. Running back, obviously, the value plays came in. You could pay up for all these great guys here. Gurley's in a good spot. Kamara, obviously, definitely worth taking a look at. But I'd rather pay down. Like I said, the steal of the day, especially on DK, is Kareem Hunt. I do like Mr. Howard for Chicago in this matchup. Mr. Coleman is in a favorable matchup as well. I mentioned that Mr. Drake could be a sneaky play, so watch out with Mr. Drake going up against the 31st ranked rushing defense in Oakland at home. And then come down a little lower. Obviously, Chris Thompson is in play. Is a better play on DK. And then on the lower half here, obviously we know the other possible chalky player is Bernard. I'm not high on Bernard. Carolina is a little tricky team, especially at home. They do defend well, and Cincinnati, to me, doesn't play well on the grass. They always seem to not play well on grass, at least for me, over the years that I've been watching them many years. So I am going to bank it on that. So, yeah, if he does well, good for him. Breida could be a possible play, as well as, and I said another sneaky play. Obviously, Corey Clement is the other third value back for tomorrow, who may get some action and play well, but right now he's still questionable, so you got to keep an eye on that. Dion Lewis is one of the other players I mentioned to you. Like I said, he's in a favorable matchup too. Tennessee has had issues with running backs, especially dual threat backs, like Mr. Lewis, who's capable of catching balls out of the backfield. So, and he's 4,500. I love his price on DK. I remember it vividly. He's 45 on DK. So Dion Lewis is one of my other sneaky plays at running back. And then, of course, Austin Eckler could possibly be a play. Watch out for Wilkins and Hines. That double threat there, dual backfield of Wilkins and Hines with Mr. Marlon Mack out. And then I've said also to watch out for Alfred Morris, because he gets about half the touches that Mr. Breida gets, and he is 5,500 here. He's much cheaper, and he's actually like under 4, I believe, 3,700. 3,700. Yes, he is 3,700, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna find him anyway, but I believe so. Yeah, Alfred Morris just passed him. 3,700. Yes, my memory is right. 3,700 there as well. How do I feel about Wentz, Orlando? Carson Wentz, man, he's a player, man. He just doesn't have anybody to throw to other than Nelson Aguilar. But he does have Mr. Ertz, and he loves Ertz, so I could see Ertz having a good game tomorrow. I'm just not willing to pay up at tight end tomorrow, man, because I want to pay up at receiver and quarterback, at least this week. Yeah, and also I will love to see him play one game and see how well he does. Out of the injury, if he shows all that confidence and he has the mobility and the confidence that he had prior to the injury, then hell yeah, and I mentioned this in my video this week, watch out for Carson Wentz, but I personally feel that I'm going to wait at least a week, just like I did with Patrick Mahomes at the beginning of the year. I told you guys I'm going to wait and see, wait a week or two, but he proved to me wrong in week 1, and I've loved him ever since. But same thing with Carson Wentz. I think let's give him a week and see how he does tomorrow, and see how he plays and how that knee holds up. And if he looks fantastic, obviously, like I said earlier in my quarterback video this week, I would definitely be keeping an eye on him, because we will be probably attacking him and touching base and talking about him a little bit more as the season progresses. Leo Burks, Adam Thielen, or Mr. Hill? Well, Alan Thielen is one of my receivers for my receiving video this week. So Adam Thielen is someone I am definitely targeting this week. I love Adam Thielen in this matchup against Buffalo. Yeah, Devin. Yeah, absolutely. I did mention Bernard. I just don't like. I don't know if you caught that earlier when I started the stream. I did mention about the running backs. He is one of those guys that obviously has been talked about all week. Obviously with the injury to Mixon, Bernard is going to get a lot of workload. he is definitely someone that's in play tomorrow for value. Obviously, like I mentioned, Corey Clement, which everybody's discussed throughout the whole NFL the whole week. And now just yesterday, obviously, we found out that Dalvin Cook is out. So Latavius Murray, obviously, is going to be chalky as well. These are the top 3 chalks for the week. So I would say if you want to play any one of the 3 or 2 of the 3, go right ahead. Chalk it up. There's nothing wrong with eating chalk. You could definitely get a couple players. Those guys are going to be in good spots. I think the receivers are the ones you really should target more this week, and definitely go for the receivers that are in favorable matchups, like I mentioned before. And the other thing about Mr. Bernard is just, I don't know, man. I am just not convinced Cincinnati plays well on grass. They're going into Carolina, and Carolina has those tendencies where they play sometimes some teams really rock solid, defending against the run as well as the pass, and play a marvelous, marvelous game. They actually played an ugly game against Dallas to begin the year, and they kept Dallas at only, I think, 6 or 8 points. So, they're just capable of doing that. You just don't know what Carolina defense you're going to get out there any given Sunday. And Cincinnati, I like their team. I like their little offense. I like Dalton. I like the connection he has with Mr. Green. But that's about it. And I love Joe Mixon. It's just unfortunately he's hurt. So I'm not too high on Bernard tomorrow. I am more on Clement and Latavius Murray for sure. I like those guys for value, definitely, considering that I'm willing to pay down in the backfield this week. Those are the guys I think you should definitely consider, and just eat the chalk. Definitely just be different. Make sure your quarterback and your receivers are just slightly different, or maybe that one tight end or the defense. Like I said, if you can get in there, Minnesota, I think Minnesota probably be one of the more higher owned teams, because looking at the defenses here on Fanduel, they're not priced that far apart. Other than Jacksonville being at 5,000, Minnesota at 49, and the Rams being at 47. Some of the nice teams like Houston that I chose this week at 44 and Chicago at 43, they're not that far away from them. So you're only saving $500 or $600. Not too bad. And if you're going to go way down here, maybe the only one that would be tempting down here, at least for me, that might surprise somebody, is the Dallas Cowboys. At 3,400, I think the Cowboys is real cheap for defense against Seattle. They're capable of shutting them down. Remember, Dallas, like I mentioned before with Chicago, they're the second best defense as far as putting pressure on the quarterback. They got 9, I believe, if I remember correctly, when I was looking at the sacks. I think Dallas is second with 9 sacks. Mr. Crabtree. Well, Mr. Crabtree, yeah, I'm not too fond of that Denver-Baltimore game, because I know both teams are capable of being very, very boring, and both teams are capable of being very good defensively. So I could see this game being even lower scored than they have them projected for, implied for. What are they? What I have them for here? I believe they have them at 20, 21, 21-17 or something like that. So Denver and Baltimore, that game could possibly go 14-10. Could be 17-10, 17-14. So not a whole lot offense there. But yeah, Crabtree could be a sneaky play here. Denver, with out of the two teams, they could probably have the better pass rush. I mean, they definitely got Von Miller, and he's really, really tough to actually defend when they are blitzing and all that. So I don't know. I'm not too high in that game. I don't have anybody that I am actually really loving in that game, at least for me, and that's just the way I feel about it. But yes, I mean, if the matchup is good for Crabtree, yeah, that could be a possibility there. But I am not targeting that game. Definitely should be more of a defensive game. Baltimore is really good at home, so I could see them really shutting down Denver a little bit as well. It'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But again, any given Sunday, anything can happen, guys. And ladies and gentlemen, anything can happen. Yeah, one of those running back. Well, yeah, that is going to happen. That's absolutely. The key is which running back. Which running back is the one that more than likely could be a bust tomorrow that is going to be chalky? To me, I'd be honest with you, to me, it would probably be Bernard. If you're looking for the value play, I think the one that has the least, in my opinion, just simply because of the way Carolina is capable of playing any given Sunday, and then being at home, and then knowing Cincinnati, they just play better on turf. They just play better on turf. It's just certain teams that they're like that. You know, Baltimore's the same way. They're just comfortable on the turf, and they go on these grass fields and they go to these warmer climates and they don't play as well. So I don't know. Cincinnati's capable of winning this game, but without Mixon, I think that's a big loss for them. And if Giovanni Bernard can really have a great game, hey, God bless. That's fantastic. But I think that the better plays for value is going to be Murray and definitely Corey Clement for me. You know, and then you got the Indianapolis guys. Don't fall asleep on those guys. And like I said, don't sleep on Mr. Alfred Morris. For DK, 3,700, getting about 28. You know, he's gotten 28 touches thus far, while his teammate Breida has gotten 29. So they kind of been sharing a little bit of the workload. And the same is going to happen with Wilkins and Hines for Indianapolis. Oakland and Miami. That's going to be an interesting game. To me, I love, like I mentioned before, I'm sure you probably missed it. But Miami, my sleeper, not so much. It's not so much of a sleeper play because he is still kind of expensive. But I do like Kenyon Drake there in that game against Oakland. Oakland has really had their troubles with running backs thus far, so I am more in favor of Kenyon Drake there. I'm not a Tannehill fan. Oakland, on the other hand, Oakland could come in there and beat Miami. I think that they have enough talent to do that with Lynch and Carr, and of course having the receiving corps of Cooper and the other guy they picked up from Green Bay. You know, they have a shot. You got Cooper and Jordy Nelson. You know, so, and they also have Latavius Bryant, who was with the Steelers. So I mean, I don't know, man. You know, this game is going to be close, but in my mind here, I really like Drake in this matchup. I think he's the only one that I would target out of the Miami game versus Oakland. And if I was going to target anybody from Oakland, it would be one of their receivers. And right now, I'm just not too high on any one of them. Maybe the sneaky one will probably be Mr. Latavius Bryant, because he has that playmaking ability. He's capable of getting touchdowns, especially in the red zone. If they can get down there, he was able to do that quite a bit and break some big games for Pittsburgh in his time in Pittsburgh. So maybe Latavius Bryant, but I'm not high on anybody in this game, man. You know, Kenny Stills could be a good play, 6,400 for a receiver. Again, there's more better receiving plays in other matchups, man. You guys got to take advantage. Not that you have to, but you should definitely be targeting those high implied total teams. I mean, that's something I learned a long time ago, and it's definitely something that everybody should always take into account. Granted, there's going to be some games that are pretty close. They match up well, and you see the players being able to have areas where they can definitely shine in, but you definitely want those high targeted games. You want those games that are high implied totals, or that the team has high implied totals. And I like to target at least 5 or 6 or 7 of those games, or play all those teams that have high implied totals. And then really I just start, breaking down the actual players that I think have the best matchups within those games. And that's how I start building at least my player pool, and then take it from there. Yeah, Carolina big, yes. I did mention earlier Jarius Wright. Could be a good option for Carolina other than Funches. And I mentioned, if you wanted to, like when I mentioned earlier that I was targeting, I had mentioned, and I'll say it again, Carolina, Cincinnati, 23.7 and 20.7 implied totals between the two teams combined. That's only 44.4. And then you got, I said it will be a good game. For me, in my opinion, is a good game to target as a game stack. And if I was to go that route, I would probably do Newton with Funches or a Wright with McCaffrey, one of the two, not all four, and then try to get Bernard and throw in there maybe A.J. Green or a John Ross, but more so A.J. Green for Cincinnati with Bernard. And you can do a game stack with those guys, and that game should be fairly close. I just still, again, believe that Carolina is going to be fairly tough at home, and Cincinnati is going to definitely feel it, it's just my gut feeling, not so much the numbers. I mean, the numbers say that Cincinnati should do well and Bernard should do okay against Carolina's defense. But Carolina has those moments where they definitely have games where they shut people down. And I think this is a game that they're going to be able to do that, as far as a running back that is a dual threat back that has the capabilities of Giovanni Bernard. Miami versus Titans. Yeah, I mean, just no different. And it's the same thing. Oakland has really been terrible against the running backs. But even if you take Jared Cook against Miami, it all comes down to, do you believe that Jared Cook is going to have a great game against Miami? You know, even though Miami has had poor games against tight ends thus far, you know, that's the one thing you got to look at. Other than them giving up DK points or fantasy points, high fantasy points, I'm looking to see how they match up as far as Oakland going into Miami and playing against the Dolphins there. You know, so defensively, yeah, if you look at it and you say, hey, you know what, Oakland or Miami's had their issues against tight ends, and they have. Then Miami goes back to last year. Now, if you're looking at last year's stats, they were horrible last year. I remember that vividly. They were terrible against tight ends last year. You know, other than the Giants and Cleveland, there was a few teams, and Miami was one of them, that did have trouble. But so far this year, I don't think they've had the same trouble as they've had in years past. I think here the best play is obviously in this game, to me, is Mr. Drake in the backfield against that Oakland defense. Yeah, Jared Cook. But again, you know, I mean, let's look at. Listen, there's nothing wrong with going with Jared Cook. You know, I'm not in favor of Cook in this game. He's 5,600 here. I just think, for me personally, I just believe that Ingram, Kittle, even Burton are like in a better spot. You know, I mean, for $100 more. But of course, Jared Cook, man, if you really have your heart set on Cook, he's not a bad play at 5,600. What is his price on DK? He's probably cheaper. Where is Mr. Cook? Jared Cook. Yeah, he's $4,000 on DK. If you're playing him on DK, man, why not? Throw him in there. Why not? You can throw in there Mr. Cook. I had Mr. Cook in week 2. You know, I mean, last week he did fairly well. I mean, no, actually the week before that, he did fairly well. I just love Kittle this week, and I love Ingram if he plays. Right now, it looks like he's good. So I think those are the best play, and the value play for me is the Will Disley, which I mentioned in my tight ends video. I definitely like Disley. Yeah, 4K on DK is awesome. I don't like his price on Fanduel, but on DK, Jared Cook, yes. You could throw him in there at tight end. He's not that expensive at all. And that opens up the doors for you to really pay up at that receiver spot or quarterback, because I think those are the areas you should. And even at quarterback, I mean, you go to quarterback on DK, I mean, geez. I mean, Rodgers is 7,100, Mahomes 7,000. Yeah, pricey for DK, but that is not that pricey. I mean, that's a good price for Mahomes for the numbers he's put up. Even Cousins at 6,800, Breeze 6,400, Deshaun Watson 6,100. Those are good prices, man. Goff 5,900, Matt Ryan 5,700 is probably the steal of the day. And like I said, don't fall asleep on Trubisky this week, and of course, Blake Bortles could be dangerous as well this week. Some of you mentioned earlier that you like Dak Prescott, 5,100 on DK. Now I like him more in the 4 o'clock slate, but not so much on the slate on the main slate, because I want to pay up at quarterback. Leo Burks, Drake or Coleman? I mean, I would go Coleman. I think Drake is a sneaky possible play here, but if you're talking about Tevin Coleman, you got to go with Coleman. And Coleman is not that much more expensive. Yeah, $500 more. Yeah, you got to go with Coleman, man. He's going to get touches. You know, he's dangerous off the backfield. Same as Drake. Drake is a good, you know, decent dual threat back. You know, he's capable of getting receptions as well. He gets targets. But just Coleman is going to get a lot more of a workload here. I mean, especially if this game gets out of hand. Especially, I could see New Orleans getting up and Atlanta really playing catch-up. And that's just going to open the doors even more so for Julio Jones, for Sanu, and of course Mr. Coleman. But I do like Kenyon Drake, like I mentioned earlier. I think he could be a very little sneaky play. Fuller Watson stack, I love it. Watson is my guy this week in Hopkins, and if you want to pair him up without Hopkins and go Fuller, absolutely, absolutely love it against the Giants. DK, wide receiver. Absolutely love it. Fuller is 5,900. 5,900 is way cheaper than Hopkins. Hopkins is expensive on DK. He's expensive on Fanduel too, but at that price on DK, that is too expensive for Hopkins. But because at that price, to be honest with you, on DK, for me personally, I like Julio Jones and Adam Thielen better at that 79 and 7,800 than paying up for Hopkins at 83. And then if I'm going to pay 83 on DK, I'd rather go all the way up to Michael Thomas, who has been the best receiver in the league for $600 more. Eric Triggs, he asks, is Russell Wilson a good sneaky pick this week? Not for me, to be honest with you, but not in the main slate. I think Dallas is really defensively. I think Dallas is going to give Seattle a rough time, man. I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you missed that or not, Eric, but Dallas defense is not the greatest, but their rushing defense has done well. If I recall correctly, Dallas has about 9 sacks. They have one less than Chicago. Chicago has the most, and Dallas, I believe, has 9. And that Lawrence kid is very, very good. Granted, it is going to open the doors for Russell to move around the pocket and do what Russell, is capable of doing. He hasn't looked that great this year, and obviously, he don't got Baldwin. He doesn't have a really good backfield. His offensive line is not that good either at the moment, so he really is going to have to do a whole lot. I could see him running for 40, 50 yards possibly against Dallas, but I like him only if he's able to get the time to throw and if he's able to hit Will Dissly. Like I mentioned, I like Dissly as the tight end, as the cheap play this week. I can see that happen. I would like Russell more so if you're thinking about the 4 o'clock slate, but not so much in the main. Even though he is pretty pricey, if you're thinking FanDuel, I think he's up here in the top 5 or 6. He's in the top 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's quarterback 6. 6 most expensive quarterback, 7,100. I mean, they're projecting him to do well at that price. They're expecting him to do well because he's got to do it all. I don't think he's going to be for me, I don't believe it's going to be a sneak. I think Dallas is going to key up on him, knowing that he's the only one that could probably beat them. And I think it's, that's just the game plan for me. Is if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, is definitely try to neutralize Russell Wilson as much as you can. So I expect those guys on the outer sides keeping Russell within the tackles and really putting pressure on him to try to, run and make things happen with his feet. I don't think they're going to let him get too much outside. And they got some good speed, the Cowboys. They're not the greatest defense, but their front 3 or 4 guys are pretty darn good. But that's my take on it. Now, if you're looking at this as an afternoon, the 4 o'clock slate, where it's just the Chargers and the Rams, then Dallas, Seattle, and Chicago, Arizona, I had mentioned earlier, I wouldn't mind targeting some Dallas players like Dak Prescott. And, you could target Russell Wilson in that particular matchup then. But on the main slate, I think it's better to pay up a little bit, a couple $100 more if you're playing FanDuel and get yourself a stud quarterback here, which is what I recommended earlier in the week as far as quarterbacks are concerned, because that's what I see. I mean, Mahomes, Rodgers, Cousins, and Breeze, any one of those 4, they're going to be in good position to put up 20 to 25 or better fantasy points for you this week because they have the matchups that they can do it in. Yeah, I'm not, Devin, I'm not on Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G is a good player as a quarterback. But to be honest with you, I personally don't feel he has enough weapons. He put up 25. They put up 30 points last week. But, that's Detroit, man. Granted, Kansas City's defense is not that good, but Kansas City's run defense is like the 7th best in the league, so he's going to have to throw and hope to beat him, but he doesn't have, I look at it this way. Look at Jimmy G and look at who he has to throw to, okay? And is there anybody really explosive or anybody terrifying for Kansas City to be worried about? And then you look at Kansas City and look at all their weapons, all the way from Watkins to even Connolly, who is capable of making big plays. And then you got your studs in Kelsey, Hunt. You got Mahomes, there's a dual threat quarterback, and you got a dual threat back in Hunt. And then you got Kelsey that is just a brute savage. He's a beast. And then you have yourself Hill that could, is probably one of the most dangerous receivers in the league when he has the football in his hands and has open space, open field. So that offense is really, really tough, man. Until somebody neutralizes 1 or 2 of these players, that's when Kansas City will put less points up. But right now, the longest they're able to put up points, you got to gravitate and got to go right with, and you got to roll, with who's hot. And Mahomes, Hill, Hunt, Kelsey, even Sammy Watkins, they're all in play. Jimmy G doesn't have enough targets. I can see them dumping a lot of balls over to Breida or maybe even Alfred Morris, which I mentioned it could be possibly good plays from the backfield. And then the top tight end that I had this week on my tight end video that I chose was Mr. George Kittle. I think George Kittle could be someone that can definitely hurt Kansas City this week, but that's about it. He doesn't have enough. He's going to have to move around and make things happen. And if he can do that, the game could be fairly decent, but you can't compare. When I look at San Francisco and then I look at Pittsburgh came back down 21 points, and Pittsburgh is a more explosive offense. They were a top 3 offense last year, and I just don't. You got Antonio Brown and you got Juju Smith-Schuster, and you got at this moment no Le'Veon Bell. But think about it, Le'Veon Bell. I mean, they got a lot of weapons, Pittsburgh, and the same thing for the Chargers prior to that. That Kansas City plays. So Kansas City has played against 2 top offensive teams. San Francisco is not in that area. So a lot of people are talking about the San Francisco thing. I don't know. Jimmy G is a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he has enough weapons to try to keep up with this team. And I don't think they have enough on the defensive side to neutralize Kansas City's offensive attack. But we'll see, because again, like I said before, nothing's guaranteed. Any given Sunday, we all see it happen, and that's one of the biggest thrills for me as a sports fan for over 40 years, is that I love the thrill of victory, I love the agony of defeat, and I love the whole Davey versus Goliath scenario all the time, and that's what makes sports, to me, exciting. So anything can happen. What about Bortles? Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that. I did say watch out for Blake Bortles. I just said it a little while ago, Devin. Bortles is someone that you got to watch out for. I mean, I also mentioned that Keelan Cole could be a very sneaky play at the receiving spot this week. He's priced pretty decent on DK, and he's going to get some touches. Where is he? Wanted to get the price again. Keelan Cole, 6,400 and 5,600 on DK. And I like the fact that he's going up against Tennessee. And Tennessee has given up 469 yards to wide receivers thus far this year in 2 games. And what I like also, another red flag, is Tennessee has given up 4 touchdowns to wide receivers. That's another thing that drew me to mention Cole earlier. And at the same time, the third and the biggest thing is the DK and Fanduel points. 59.8, second most in the NFL. DK points, 2 receivers thus far this year, Tennessee, and 47.1 on FanDuel if you're playing FanDuel. So, yes, Blake Bortles and even throwing in there Keelan Cole could be a possible option for you guys as well. All right, I'm going to give it a few more minutes, and then I am going to wrap it up. Watch a little bit of college football. And get ready for tomorrow. Double check everything. Tomorrow morning I get up, have my coffee, have breakfast, look over the slate again, look at the injury report, and see if I have to make any adjustments. And then if not, that's it. Eli Manning. Okay, hold on. Allison with the Packers. I don't know. Don't know about Allison. Eli Manning is a good play, and ODB, yeah, but I don't know. I am not on Eli tomorrow, man. And we know Odell Beckham is a good player. Eli needs time. He needs time. Remember, Eli's, 36, 37 years old? Eli needs time back there. He's not getting enough time. And then tomorrow he's got to deal with a team that is 0-2. Remember, they're going into Houston. Both teams are 0-2. The Giants lose tomorrow, they're pretty much done. Houston can't afford to go 0-3. All right, Houston is going to come. That crowd is going to be going bonkers over there. Watt and company have not been very good up front thus far this year, and they have an opportunity with a weak offensive line like the Giants. They have their center go down for the entire year. They lost their center with a broken ankle. Okay, and they find themselves going up against a 36, 37-year-old quarterback that is in his last few years of his career. I see J.J. Watt, and I see him and Clowney and the rest of his gang getting busy tomorrow. This is why I also picked Houston as one of my top 3 defenses for this week. I like the matchup. I think Houston is going to do well here. And I don't know if Eli's going to have sufficient time to hit OBJ. I think he should, I don't know. That's just the way I feel about it. And, I feel bad for OBJ because Odell Beckham Jr., if you give him the ball, he is one of the most electrifying receivers in his league. But you got to get him the ball. And with that, you need pass protection, maximum, from my days in high school, maximum pass protection, our coach used to say. That means you gotta knuckle up, buddy, up there up front, man, especially when you're looking to try to hit OBJ. And if you're going to hit him, you're going to hit him short. This is why I think Eli is going to have to hit OBJ short. He's going to have to hit Barkley, as well in the short passes, in the seams. And he's going to have to also target Ingram. This is why I like Ingram as one of my tight ends. I think he's going to be in a good spot here, especially if Eli has enough time to set his feet and get it to him. But he's going to have to go short. A lot of short passes. I just can't see them going deep. Eric Triggs, will Josh Allen get at least give 14 points versus Viking defense? Well, the big upside for the Vikings defense is obviously they didn't look too good against Green Bay. All right, we all know that. They are a better team than that, and they are a better defense than that. They're going up against a Buffalo team in Minnesota. Now think about it. In Minnesota, okay, Buffalo stinks, and you got a rookie quarterback that was just thrown to the wolves, so to speak. They just threw him in there because, the other Nathan Peterman. Oh, come on, who is that? That sounds like he's an attorney or something. This guy don't even sound like a quarterback. They had Peterman in there. They had to bring in Josh Allen. Now Josh Allen is in there. He's got a cannon of an arm, but he has nobody to throw to. He doesn't have an offensive line. He's in a tough spot, man. And you throw a young kid like this to the Wolves against a team that they know that Minnesota is going to gear up and try to be very aggressive in how they attack Josh Allen. And I can see this kid, and this is the biggest upside for this game, is that Minnesota is going to target that. They're going to target the young kid. They're going to put a lot of pressure on him, and they're going to force him to try to beat them with his arm somehow. And I can just see where this kid may get fluttered, may cough up the ball, fumbles, maybe some possible interceptions, and that's where we get into fantasy points from. Granted, Minnesota is the best defense in the best matchup tomorrow. That's the biggest upside from it that everybody's going to be looking at, and they may be the chalkiest. But it's fine and dandy. You might as well eat the chalk with a Minnesota defense against a weak Buffalo team and a rookie that was just thrown to the wolves, wasn't even ready to really step in there and play. So I think Josh Allen, has a terrific arm, but a kid like that definitely needs an offensive line to help him out. That will be the upset of the week. I mean, man, even if they don't even win the game, if they were to lose this game by just 3 or 4 points, that is an upset. That is a disappointment for Minnesota in Minnesota if Buffalo was to keep this game close. But at the same time, you want it to stay fairly close because you want Cousins. You want his gang. You want Latavius Murray to get more touches. You want Cousins to throw more targets to Adam Thielen and to Mr. Stephon Diggs and Mr. Rudolph. Why not? Sometimes you got to look at it that way. Oh, I hope Buffalo keeps the game close, but all signs are showing that this is not going to be a great game for Buffalo. But again, anything can happen any given Sunday, guys. Anything can happen. If you watch this game, if you watch any sport long enough, as far as team sports, you've seen it all. You've seen it all. And that's the thrill of it. That's the thrill as a fan for me, and I used to play the sports a lot myself when I was young, is the competitiveness, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, of course, the Davy Goliath scenario, the Cinderella story. We all love that in sports, and that's the reason why. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes, and we're going to wrap it up here. It's almost 9 o'clock. Any other questions regarding tomorrow? I hope I'm able to help some of you guys any way I can. That's why I'm on here. Obviously, I also want to just build a good community of DFS players wanting to learn from one another. I'm here as well to learn from you. That's why I listen to you guys to see if there's anything I'm missing, anything that I'm overlooking. But I usually try to look at everything, especially the key matchups that I like, and then I basically start gearing on those. That's why I wasn't on the Denver-Baltimore, because I really didn't see where I would like that game that much. Same thing with the Chargers and the Rams. I'm not going to target too much there, you know, because anything can happen there, even though I do believe the Rams are the much more superior team. But I will target those guys in the Rams, especially in the 4 o'clock slate, but not so much in the main. I think some of the key games that I mentioned before, New Orleans, Atlanta, the Green Bay, Washington game, Cincinnati, Kansas City, those are some of the games we should definitely be targeting. Obviously, some players from Minnesota. And I mentioned also look out for Houston with the Giants. And, of course, Cincinnati and Carolina could be an interesting game for some players there as well. So those are the ones I'm kind of gearing up for the most. And then those 4 o'clock games, that'll be something else, you know, to discuss. All right. So if that's pretty much it, man, I guess I'll wrap up the show right there. Obviously, what I'm going to do this week, I'm definitely going to do a review on the picks that I give out. I just want to be able to be accountable for some of the players that I mentioned on my channel. This way, it also helps me reflect, and I keep this stuff on paper as well, you know, on my own spreadsheets and stuff like that. So I keep what I put down and just put those fantasy points and see where the players and how the matchups were, and that just leaves a gauge and a record book for me for the year. But it's also a good way to also share with my viewers on, hey, you know what, I did have this guy, and this is what this guy, this is what these individuals did this week, and which ones I crashed and burned. I pretty much did that during the NBA season, and I figured that's definitely a route that I should go as well. And as anybody also, anytime I'm basically, guys, for those who don't know me that well, I basically play mostly GPP. I usually just take the chances with that. I play very minimal cash games, very minimal, especially in the NFL season. It's pretty much GPP for me. So I'm a GPP player, die hard in every sport. But at the same time, anything that I win, I basically do post it up so people could see more or less where I'm at. So win or lose, I mean, more so now when I don't win anything, I'm not going to post that up. But any scores that produce me any kind of a cash, I definitely put it on. No big or small, no matter how big or small the cash is, if it's $2, $10, $20, $100, if it's a few thousand, whatever it may be. I try to share that with you guys on my Instagram, so that information is below. If you've never been there, it's at DFS Zone. Then, of course, I will also put that information up on my Facebook page, which is DFS Zone on Facebook, if you want to do that. And the same thing on Twitter, which is DFS Zone at DFS _zone. All that information is down below in the description box. I would appreciate you guys drop a like. It shows me that you do appreciate my time and giving you the best possible information I can give you as far as advice is concerned, or as far as statistics. And we take it from there, man, and we keep building from this point forward. So I hope everybody has a awesome Sunday, and I hope you guys all cash and make some serious money. And I hope that in any way, shape or form, I have helped you guys. And basically, we will see you guys for the next slate, which will be next week, of course. And I will have those videos starting as of Monday or Tuesday. All right, guys. All right, Dwayne Wesley, thank you. I do the best I can. James Perkins, will Tavon Austin get any targets? Possibly, yes. For the Tavon Austin, yes, possibly can get some. I'm not high on him. Like, I know, James, you're probably paying up somewhere, because obviously Austin is a lower tier play as far as receivers concerned, and that's quite all right. Whatever way you want to do your lineup, but I'm not high on Austin as far as him having a big game. But he could possibly, you know, Austin is capable. Now, James, I know you're asking because he's a Dallas Cowboy now. I like I said, the 4 o'clock slate. If you're playing the 4 o'clock slate, James, yes, I definitely love Austin in that, because in the 4 o'clock slate, you're only looking at 3 or 4 games. But on the main slate here, unless you really are paying up at running back and paying a little bit down on quarterback, like mid-tier, and you're considering paying also up on wide receiver or tight end, then yeah, you could throw in there Austin if that's what you so choose. Austin is what? Let me see. What's his price? It's got to be in the below 5. He's got to be below 5 here. If he's higher than that, then it's too much. Let me just go to Dallas. Where's Mr. Austin? Mr. Austin is not with Dallas, so he's with. I don't see him. 4,500? Doesn't he play for the Cowboys? I'm looking at him. I know you play Fanduel. Why am I looking at him at DK? Wrong spot. No. What the hell is he? Holy shit. So he's 4,500. I don't know, man. I mean, again, 4,500 is a good price for him on DK. Like I said, I would prefer him more so in the 4 o'clock slate. But again, if that's your game plan for one of your lineups is to throw him in there in the main slate, yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I was looking through the 45s. There's a bunch of guys here at 45. He must be at the bottom. There he goes, Tavon Austin. He is way down at the bottom of the list. There are like 30 guys at 4,500. So, yeah, Tavon Austin, like I said, yeah, I like him better in the 4 o'clock slate than in the main slate. But, again, you could play him in the main slate if you're going to take 2 stud receivers and then pay down on one. Depending on which route you go with quarterback. But like I said, I'm more in favor of the paying up a little bit on the quarterback this week, paying for one of those 4 studs in the top, and paying their top wide receivers to pair up with them. I believe that's the way to go, at least for this week. I mean, next week, totally different when I look at that slate. Best low-price sneaky play at wide receiver. Well, I definitely don't like anybody at 4,500. In the main slate. The 2 guys that stand out for me. I already passed one of them. Obviously, one would be Sanu for Atlanta at 5,300, and I do like also for the price 5,400, Jarris Wright for Carolina. I think those 2 are probably the best, man, at that price. I mean, I don't see anything under 5 that I like. Hold on a second. Let me double check that. That's in a favorable matchup. I mean, some people are on Boyd. He could be a sneaky play at 4,700. I'm just not feeling Cincinnati tomorrow. But again, he is someone that's viable here. He's averaging 11 fantasy points on FanDuel right now. So he could be someone that you could get him definitely at 4,700 against Carolina. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't see nobody there. So he will be the lowest guy I will go that I think may have an opportunity to get some touches is Boyd. And I think he had those higher points last week. Yeah, it was last week. And that was it. So a little up and down, but he could be someone that you may target this week at 4,700. He does have, he is able to get 18. He did it last week. He got 9 targets. He has 6 receptions. I just don't know. I am not too high on that. I would rather go Pettis at 5,200, who we know is going to definitely get targeted, or Sanu for sure at 5,300. And I like Mr. Wright here for Carolina at 5,400. Other than that, that is it, man. Crowder, 5,700 maybe. Pierre Garçon for San Francisco. I like Pettis more as far as price. So if you wanted to target him. But that's it. After that, man, I mean, I'd rather pay up for some receivers, but nothing wrong with paying down on one receiver if you need it. If you want to come down all the way to 6,400, I mentioned 6,400. I like Keelan Cole, and I do like Allen Robinson II for Chicago in this matchup. He's going to get a lot of targets. It's one of Trubisky's favorite targets right now. And then you got still Sammy Watkins, 6,200 here. You know he's going to get some touches with that tremendous offense they got. And Cooper Kupp at 6,300 is going to get targeted a lot for the Rams at home. And then you even still got Randall Cobb. You got a lot of guys here in that low 6K range on FanDuel. But if you want to go cheaper, the cheapest I will go is, like I said, I like Wright. I think he's in a good matchup there for Carolina. Sanu, definitely Pettis at 5,200. And the lowest will probably be Mr. Boyd, which he's at 4,700. So you got a couple options there. The best option to me is to go with someone who's going to get targeted a lot more. And that will be Pettis. He's going to get targeted. And then Mr. Wright is going to get targets. Funches gets most of the targets. And Mr. McCaffrey. And if you can go up a little higher, definitely you can get even better possible plays. Funches is at 6,200. Cobb is at 6,100. These guys will be targeted. Sammy Watkins will get some touches. Get some targets. Cooper Kupp for sure. He's an integral part of the offense for the Rams. Same thing for Stills. So there's a lot of nice plays here from like 6,500 down. Oh, no problem, Eric. I mean, that's what I'm here to do, is to do what I can. Do what I can to help you guys. I mean, but the ones in the most favorable matchups, man, again, best possible matchup scenarios. Funches against Cincinnati, definitely. Cobb, definitely against Washington. All right, Washington doesn't have the best defense against the pass. So and then you got Aaron Rodgers, so Randall Cobb. Then you have, for me, then from there you come down. It's definitely Wright against Cincinnati. I think he is definitely in a favorable matchup, a team that he could definitely get some touches on. And Dante Pettis, 5,200. Those guys are in matchups. This is the highest scoring implied total for the game, over under. The San Francisco-Kansas City game. Dante Pettis is going to be targeted. All right, so consider those guys right there. All right, that's basically it, guys, man. Again, drop a like on the live stream, man. I appreciate it. It shows me that you guys appreciate my channel and appreciate my help. Other than that, I mean, I'll be back again, of course, next Saturday, hopefully on time. I got in here late today, about 7:15, so I apologize for that. But we'll be back again next Saturday. And, of course, look out for the new videos for Week 4, which will start, they'll be cranked out already by Tuesday and Wednesday. You'll have all the videos from quarterback all the way through tight end and defense. And, of course, I'm going to do a review one to start the week. I will do a review one because I think it's important for me to go and look back to see what information I gave you guys for the previous week and see how well those players did. All right? So I will do that and share that with you guys. And, of course, I probably will be doing the Thursday night next week. I know a few of you asked last Thursday regarding the Jets in Cleveland, which everybody that has been following me knows that I am a Jet fan. And I am a big Baker Mayfield fan, hoping for the Jets to draft him, and that didn't pan out. Cleveland definitely took advantage of taking him first, and they did the best. They made the best decision that's probably going to happen for Cleveland in a long time. So I definitely think they're going to be all right. All right, so that's basically it, man, guys. Enjoy the games tomorrow. Make a lot of money. Good luck, everyone. Everybody, God bless. Have a wonderful Saturday night. And I'll see you guys on the next video. All right? Peace out.